and seeing Matt go under the bridge, because I was only like a minute behind him at that point. But then I saw Antoine, who Matt had just passed, and he was really close to me at that point, like maybe 20 seconds or 25 seconds. And I remember in the last mile, just like really digging down and trying to catch him. And I think I caught him on the bridge, basically the pedestrian bridge, with half a mile to go. And I think I put maybe 30.
What is up, YouTube? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. For those that are new to the channel, I'm Joe Wilson, and I make videos related to triathlon, whether it's swimming, biking, running, all those cool things you can find right here on this channel. And guys, do I have a surprise for you? I've got the second place 2017 winner for Chattanooga, 70.3, and third place 2018 winner for Chattanooga, 70.3, Adam, and I will butcher his last name every time I try, so I'm just gonna call him Adam O. Adam, how do you say your last name?
Ottstadt.
Ottstadt. Where is that from?
It's from Germany.
Okay. Yep. Are you a recent? I mean, like for me, I mean, I think my ancestors was found in Georgia, you know. So, but like, are you guys recently?
No, my ancestors came across in like late 1600s. Okay. So we've been here for a while, and actually when we moved over, it had like 5 more letters in my last name. It's been Americanized, so it's Ottstaut. It's kind of rolls off the tongue a little bit, but
okay.
Yeah.
Well, Adam, thanks for being on the channel today. I wanted to talk to you about your races you did. Like, you crushed 2017, 2018 at Chattanooga. But before we do that, I want to get into your background a little bit. Adam, can you introduce yourself?
So I'm Adam Otstot. I live in Williamsburg, Virginia, and I've been here since 2000. And so I've been involved with triathlon. Well, I've been involved with endurance sports since I was in middle school. I started off as a track and field athlete, ran track and field in high school, ran track and field and cross country in college at the College of William and Mary. And then after college, started getting into some bike training just to stay healthy for marathon training. Fell in love with the bike, decided to do some duathlons. And then as you may be aware, duathlons aren't really the most popular sport anymore. And so I couldn't find too many duathlons to compete in. So I figured I had to kind of learn how to swim competitively. I had no swim background whatsoever, and jumped in and did my best and got into triathlon right around 2005, and kind of started my triathlon journey from there. Outside of that, I've got a wife and 2 kids, Tori, and then Cassidy is 9 and Sawyer is 4, and a little dachshund, Bentley, who's about 12. And I currently work as a health and PE curriculum specialist in Williamsburg, James City County Public Schools.
Nice. So when you were in college, let's talk about PRs. What was your fastest 5K? You guys ran probably mostly 5Ks, 8Ks, right?
So my college career was kind of one-sided. I started off the first couple of years doing 800s and 1500s, and then I got into the steeplechase really early as well. And so most of my competitive races were in the steeple. So my best time in the steeple was 9:07, which I think if you use like conversion tables is somewhere like in the general area of like 14:30 to 14:40 for a 5K. But I only raced a 5K one time in college on the track, and that was indoors. I ran 15:03, which I'm also very proud of, but makes me feel like I had a little unfinished business because I never officially broke that 15-minute barrier, but that's okay. I'm living with it. And then I also ran one 10K on the track, and I ran 31:11. So again, probably not entirely indicative of the fitness that I was in college, but that's what I had. Yeah.
So that steeplechase, when you jump over that, whatever that thing is, and land in the water, I mean, how hard is that to get the momentum going again?
Yeah, it's really challenging. I liked it because I was always a bigger fan of cross country, and I just found the track incredibly boring, just running circles. And so having the barriers and having the water jump was something that interested me from the first minute I realized I could do it. Running a good steeple is it involves a lot of accelerations, because you have to accelerate into each barrier to kind of pick your speed up and get the clearance over the barrier. And so it's a lot of surges, and then you kind of fall back into your pace. So it's I don't it's a definitely a different type of running than just a straight 5K or a straight 3K for that matter. And there's definitely some technical aspects with regards to being efficient over the hurdles when you're hurdling, and then the water jump as well. You can lose a ton of time every water jump if you don't have great technique. And so that was also fun to kind of work towards and to try to get better from the technical side of things, so I could potentially compete with people that were just fitter than me, but I could be more efficient than them.
Yeah. So you started your triathlon career in 2005 as an
Yeah.
amateur in the age grouper. How long did it take you to get your swim technique to where you felt comfortable, you know, going from the middle of the pack, maybe to the front of the pack? I'm sure you could blow people away on your run. You know, I've seen people all the time, you know, be great runners, but then they're horrible swimmers, you know?
Yeah, it took me a while. I would say it probably took me until 2008 before I really felt like I could be competitive in like an age group Ironman field. And so, yeah, basically 3 full years of really hard work. And then even at that point, probably another 4 years before I felt comfortable that I could potentially compete as a pro, because racing in the pro field is much different, and having a stronger swim is much more important in the pro field.
Yeah. And when did you turn pro?
Right after, so the end of 2012. So basically the 2013 season was
Okay.
my first pro season.
And how did you qualify to become a pro?
So I qualified actually a few times, I think technically, because I think there are like 5 or 6 ways that you can qualify through US triathlon. But so a couple of the Ironmans that I competed in 2007 and 2008 and 2009 would have qualified me because I finished in the top whatever percentage. But I had a pretty strong goal of competing well at Kona. And I went there in 2009 and had a pretty good race, but not, I still had unfinished business there. And so really my goal was, I'm not going to turn pro until I can qualify with the Kona qualifying standard, which is finish in the top 10 amateurs at Kona. And so that was my goal. I figured if I couldn't do that, then I probably wasn't going to be that competitive as a pro anyway. And so, yeah, 2012 Kona is where I finished 9th amateur overall, first American amateur. And after I did that, I felt like, okay, let's give being a pro a shot.
Wow. Yeah, I think about that time. It's about time to be pro. You know, what was your time at Kona that year? Do you remember?
9:12, but I think 2012 was a historically slow year because the winds were pretty. I mean, I know everybody says the winds are hard in Kona when they go, but if you look at the winning time and the times of the top pros, most of the times were a little bit slower that year. So I know that the winds were a lot harder in 2012 than they were in 2009 for me. So but anyway, it doesn't really matter. For me, it's all about competing. It's not so much about times. And so, yeah, I was super happy with how that race played out for me.
Hey, top 10 is top 10. I don't care.
That's right.
10 hours, 12 hours. It doesn't matter, you know?
Right.
You play the cards you dealt with, right?
That's right. That's right. I made it work.
So what was your first pro race in 2013?
Rev 3 Williamsburg. So I was really fortunate. Obviously, I was living in Williamsburg, and Rev 3, I believe it was the very first year that they had. So I think Rev 3 was created in around 2012 or 2013. And they kicked it off with this huge pro prize purse and a bunch of their races. And one of their first races was in Williamsburg. And so it actually drew quite a strong field. And so I was super pumped to open up in my hometown as a pro. Obviously everybody in the community was super excited for me. And so, yeah, that was my first pro race. And I'll have to say it was a huge wake up call as well, because I got absolutely thrashed. And it sort of made me question whether I had made the right decision. But part of it was the James River where the race takes place and where most of the local Williamsburg races take place can be really volatile sometimes. You can go on a Tuesday and it can be like glass with no current, and then you can go on a Wednesday and it can have massive chop with a huge current, and it just changes on a dime. And so the morning of that particular race, the water was just atrocious. And of course, it benefited guys that were really strong swimmers, really strong open water swimmers, of which I was not at the time. And I think I lost somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 or 9 minutes on the top guys just in the swim. And I did a pretty good job playing catch up the rest of the day, but you can't make up that kind of time on guys like Andrew Starkowitz and Kevin Collington and some of those guys.
Yeah. 8 minutes on the swim. Yeah, that's kind of high. I'm in an Olympic, I come down 8 minutes, and then it's like, okay, let's see if we can catch anybody,
Right.
So now fast forward to Chattanooga, right? How many times have you done that race total as a pro?
So I went to Chattanooga 8 times between the full and the half and the World Championships. So eight times. I competed in Chattanooga more than I've competed anywhere else. Well, maybe not included Williamsburg. I've done the local Williamsburg races quite a bit, but outside of my hometown, Chattanooga was definitely the place I raced at most frequently.
Are you like me? You love that town? It's such an awesome city.
I mean, I think it's incredible. The first time I was there was, I think, the inaugural 2014 full. Mm-hmm. And I fell in love with it from the first time I was there. I just said, wow, this place is amazing. I felt like the community embraced the race, and just the local downtown vibe with all the restaurants, and like I remember there's like a building with like a rock wall on the side of it. I thought that was really cool. Just like a very active town. And of course you have the pedestrian bridge. I just thought it was really nice. And I was just a big fan. And for me, I think Chattanooga is about 10-hour drive from Williamsburg. So it really wasn't logistically that hard for me to get to. And it just made sense for me to race there pretty much every year.
So your first time in Chattanooga, the 2014 race, how did that go?
It was good. I think I finished 10th in the full, and I had a good day that day. I think technically it's still my Ironman PR. I went 8:39, and I didn't have any complaints. I mean, it was a strong field. I think Matt Hansen won that day, if I'm not mistaken. And there were definitely some strong racers there. And so I had a good day. The swim, I mean, obviously the swim is super fast in the full. Mm-hmm. And so I lost a few minutes on the swim, and then the bike, I lost a lot more time that day, but I ran sub 3 on the run and finished feeling strong. So I didn't have any complaints. It was a solid day for me. And for me at the time in 2014, it was about as good as I could have done.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, but I think the top 3 guys that day were like really, really close to each other. They were like all sprinting almost to try to catch one another that year.
That could have been it. Yeah.
And look out, Chattanooga is usually known for like extreme heat. And that year, I think it was like nice and 75 degrees and overcast.
Yeah, that 2014, the weather was, I do remember the weather was super mild and made for really fast conditions. The next time I went, well, I think I did a 70.3 in 2016, but I think the full in 2016 was the next full I had done there. And that was the year where it was like 100 degrees outside. It was just nasty hot, and it just came out of nowhere. Of course you're entering the fall, and I mean, Virginia and Georgia or Tennessee, I mean, they're comparable weather-wise. I'm sure Chattanooga is probably a little warmer than Williamsburg, but I mean, we had started entering the fall weather, and so here I am training, and then all of a sudden we get there and it goes from being in the 60s and 70s to being basically 100. That caught me off guard.
So speaking of the full, I didn't know you had done the full. Speaking of the full, how hard is Barton? Do you remember Barton?
Oh, how could I forget Barton? I mean, Barton is very difficult But that's honestly one of the reasons why I initially chose it in 2014, because coming from a running background, I just figured the later into the race you go, I was able to take advantage of my run strength. And I figured in a run that difficult, that was just going to play to my advantage, which I think it did to some extent. And so I really embraced those big hills because I figured, compared to other guys, hopefully I'd be making up a little time on them through that section every loop.
So as a pro, what do you think was your first breakout race where you're like, okay, now I truly belong here?
I felt like, so in 2016, I did Eagle Man. I did Eagle Man for quite a few years in a row. And 2016, I finished second at Eagle Man. And I wouldn't say that the field was super deep or super strong, but that was the race where it was the first time I had podiumed as a pro in a 70.3. And I still remember getting off the bike and starting the run. And somebody was telling me, "You're running in second place. You're doing great." And I was thinking to myself, are they talking to me? There's no way that I'm in second place right now. Like Cody Beals was in the race and he was up the road, but I just sort of assumed based on my history of racing that I wasn't going to be up in the front. Right. And I guess I had just ridden pretty well and I had ridden through the main pack and there was nobody else except for Cody up the road. And so, yeah, I remember just doing that entire run, kind of running scared because I'm like, I must be mispacing this somehow. Like there's no way I should be doing this right now. And I don't know, I held on and broke 4 and yeah, I had a good day. So it probably wasn't my best race. Like when you look at my whole pro career, but that was the race where I was like, okay, I can keep doing this. I can be competitive.
Nice. So let's fast forward to Chattanooga 2017. That was a great race. You finished second that day on the podium. Congratulations. You still have that big. Did they give you like the supersized checks? Do you guys get like, or are they just like little tiny?
They never gave me a supersized check. I was kind of bummed about that. No, they just gave me a little, like the same plaque that everybody else gets, except it just has pro on it instead of age group. And then they mail you a check like 2 months after the race.
You know what trips me out is they give flowers. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't understand this. Guys don't want flowers. I did a race in 2019 at Daytona, and Joe Malloy's there with his flowers. And I was like, Joe, give me those. Because I talked to him at another race. And I was like, Joe, give me those. And so I took him and put them on the podium for and I gave them back to him. I was like, why do they give you these flowers? So anyway, so let's talk about the race in 2017. You're in the water, about to go. You guys have a mass start that year, upstream, then downstream. That was a strong current. They canceled that for all the age groupers, right?
Right. Yeah. So the way that the start played out is all the pros were in the water warming up. And I think that the race director saw how strong the current was, but I think at the time just said, we'll let the pros go. And then we're not going to let the age groupers, because I think once we started, they saw what little progress we were making going upstream. And they were like, well, if the pros can't even make it to the turnaround barely, there's no way that all the age groupers are going to be able to do that. And so, yeah, we started and obviously we did the entire swim. I can't remember at this point how long it took me to get to the turnaround, but I do remember it was super strong. And then I remember looking at the results at the end of the day, and Matt Russell won the race and I was second. But in the official results, when you look at it, there's like 3 or 4 age groupers that have a faster time than us, but their swim is like, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes faster than ours or something, right? And so they obviously didn't have to do the whole thing. But yeah, it was a good swim for me. All things considering, going upstream like that, I was able to stay with Matt Russell, who, Matt and I, in that like 2016 to 2019 timeframe, we raced each other a whole lot. Like I basically hit the East Coast circuit of 70.3s and Ironmans, and Matt Russell, I mean, he races pretty much every weekend, I feel like. And so we saw each other a lot, and we were very evenly matched on the swim. And so 9 times out of 10, we were pretty much swimming on each other's hips. And so that was one of the first times that we had done that. But yeah, we worked together pretty well in the swim. I think we came out of the swim 3 seconds apart or something like that. And got to transition. He was a much more seasoned pro than me, even in 2017. And so he got on the bike and he was gone pretty much immediately. And I was still kind of learning the tactics a little bit. And I still had that age group mentality in my brain where like you want to do even pacing the whole time, which in the pro race doesn't work quite as well. And so Matt was gone out of the picture, and I was doing my race. And he ended up biking about 2 minutes faster than me on that day. In the meantime, the guy who was leading the race, his name was Antoine Delaroche. He's from Canada. He was a super strong swimmer, or he still is a super strong swimmer, but that swim really did play in his favor. And I think he put maybe 3 minutes into us on the swim. And then I think he put another 5 minutes into me on the bike. So another 3 minutes into Matt on the bike. And so he had a gigantic lead coming off into T2. And so I think it was him and then Matt. And then there were maybe 3 or 4 more guys in between Matt and I going into the run. And so for me, it was just a matter of picking guys off. Chattanooga is great. You've got that long stretch on the highway, and there are a couple points where you can see like, maybe not half a mile, but you can see quite a long ways ahead of you during some of those portions. And so I was able to kind of get a gauge on where guys were and kind of use them as carrots. And so that's really just what I did for the first 8 or 9 miles of the run. And then I got to the point right around that time where I knew I was in 3rd place, and which I was pretty happy with. I knew Matt was up the road and I knew this other guy was way up the road, but I didn't realize that he was coming back really quickly. I just sort of assumed that he was going to win because I heard going into the run that he had like an 8-minute lead on me. And I was like, well, I mean, I'm not going to run like a 110 and make up, even if he runs, 118. But yeah, I remember getting to the bridge that you cross, and you don't have to go up Barton, but you have to go across the bridge and then just kind of do like a quick loop down and under the bridge. And I remember in the last, right by the last mile, going across the bridge and seeing Matt go under the bridge, because I was only like a minute behind him at that point. But then I saw Antoine, who Matt had just passed, and he was really close to me at that point, like maybe 20 seconds or 25 seconds. And I remember in the last mile, just like really digging down and trying to catch him. And I think I caught him on the bridge, basically the pedestrian bridge, with half a mile to go. And I think I put maybe 30 seconds in him over the last half mile. But yeah, he was hurt. And I don't know if he maybe rode a little bit too hard or what, but that was a really nice close for me. And to basically go from 3rd to 2nd in the last half mile was pretty satisfying.
Nice. Now, what do you, I mean, we always hear dig deep, right? But like, I mean, and you're already hurting because you're probably running at threshold pace. I mean, what do you pull out of yourself, or what do you think of when you're like trying to dig deep,
That's a good question. I mean, I think you and I think all the listeners out here will be able to relate to, like, when you're 11 or 12 miles into a 70.3, pretty much going as hard as you can go. I mean, there's not like, you can't really shift gears. I mean, you're going what you can go. And so there's not a whole lot you can do, but at the same time, there are things that can motivate you to like draw just like that extra couple of percentage points out of yourself. And so if you're by yourself and you know that you're not catching anyone ahead of you or nobody's behind you chasing you down, it's a lot easier to just kind of like keep that effort, like right at or just below the red line, and just kind of like cruise in, you're still putting out a good effort, but like really putting out a sprint finish isn't ultimately really that necessary, unless you care about a finishing time. But if you see somebody up there that you can catch, and especially if that person means that you're going to make an extra $1,000 on the day, yeah, it's easier to like find something in yourself to at least try. And I think a lot of times you do have that extra little bit in you. You just sometimes all you have to do is change your cadence a little bit, or pump your arms a little bit harder, and just give it a try for 30 seconds. And sometimes you find you can maintain that a little longer than maybe you think you can.
When you came up to him on the bridge, did he try to go with you, or did you just like, did you get in surge, or did you?
I mean, I definitely surged. He didn't come with me for very long. I mean, I think he was just, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I'm pretty sure he was ready for that finish line. I think he was pretty done. So he was probably disappointed that I came up on him so late into the race. But of course, Matt had just passed him probably a couple minutes earlier. And so after leading for so long, he was probably a little demoralized that he was probably so close to winning, and then just getting passed by a couple guys at the end. But yeah, I think when you're in that position, I'm not so sure that there's much you can do about it. You're done, So yeah, I think he tried.
Now on the bike, did you ride with a pack once you got settled in, or did you kind of just solo that one?
In that race, I don't particularly remember a pack that I worked with. There may have been a few guys here and there, but for the most part, I was on my own or with one or two guys. We were pretty isolated. I think the main pack, or what the main pack was in that race, was still up the road for me. I never quite caught it. I think there was a group of guys that came out of the swim about 90 seconds ahead of me, and they all rode pretty well. I think they rode about the same split as I rode. So I pretty much just stayed about a minute and a half behind those guys. And so I never saw them. But that's how a lot of my races were. Most of I would say there were a few that were more tactical for me, but most of them were get on the bike and I'm just doing my own race. I mean, there were many times where I was out on the race course racing in a pro race that I didn't see anybody for in some of those Ironmans for what seemed like an hour or two. I never saw anybody else. And that's a tough way to race when there's nobody on course at all. You can't see anybody ahead of you. Nobody's passing you. Nobody's out there cheering for you. You're just out there on a ride by yourself. I mean, you start thinking like, am I really racing? Like, what's going on here? But yeah, I think in that race, they were pretty sparse. So I just did my own thing, and it worked out okay.
Are you the guy that goes into T2 and says, all right, now this is my game? This is now the race really starts, and you start mowing them down
on the bike.
Oh no, on the run. When you go
on the run. Oh yeah. I definitely have always had the mindset of get to the run in the best position possible, and then now this is my element. And I never quite had the speed that you're seeing out of guys nowadays. Of course, they have the super shoes now, which does make a difference, but I think in comparison, run was definitely still my relative strength. And so I felt most confident and most comfortable getting onto the run. And I always felt like I was going to give myself a chance to at least move up in the field a few spots.
Yeah. I think you ran 1:16 that day, correct?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's now, 10 guys probably ran that at Oceanside a couple weeks ago. It's just
right. Yeah. 1:16 is, it's pretty much pedestrian in the pro race nowadays. If you run a 1:16, you're not doing much. Yeah.
That's insane, because that was not, when I saw you 1:16 from 2017, I was like, wow, and
I think that was the top run split on that day, by like a minute. So it just goes to show the quality of pro racing has increased over the past 5 or 6 years pretty dramatically. Of course, technology has helped that as well, but I just think overall the quality of the fields, the preparation of the athletes, I think the game has changed a bit, just even in the past half a decade.
So in 2017, when you got on the podium, did you qualify for the World Championship 70.3 that year?
Yes.
And
well, so I take that back. So
it was a weird dynamic. You had to have points, and it wasn't necessarily.
Yeah. So I did qualify, but it was a combination of my finishes in Chattanooga, in Raleigh, in Eagleman, and those 3 were enough for me to get ranked highly enough to get an invitation to the Worlds.
Yeah. Now that was in Australia. Did you go race it?
So 2017 was in Chattanooga.
No, I'm sorry. I'm thinking incorrectly. I apologize. Yes. 2017. Yes. So you got a spot to Worlds.
Yep.
How was that?
It was super fun. I'm glad I got to participate. I guess that's all I can say about it. I mean, those guys, a lot of those guys were on a much different level than I was and ever was, to be honest. I mean, I still remember lining up on the dock. Of course, we had the diving start off the dock in that race because they changed the swim course so that it was like half upstream and half downstream, which made the swim a little bit more of a swim and less of a like turn on your back and just float down the river. But I remember looking across the dock and seeing Javier Gomez and Sebastian Kienle, and I mean, there were a bunch of other guys that were Olympic caliber athletes. And I just thought to myself, well, I'm here. So that's a start. I earned my right to be here, which was awesome. But yeah, I mean, it was a very challenging race for me. The swim was super fast. And of course, by that point, I mean, I was a better swimmer, but swimming has always been the relative weakness for me. And so I remember the first 200 or 300 just doing everything I could to stay within the draft of the back of the pack, basically. And there were a couple points where I almost lost it off basically the last group, but I was able to hold on, which included Sebastian Kienle, and it included a few other guys that were from other countries that I wasn't too familiar with. And I think Trevor Wortel was also in that group as well. And we came out of the water as a group, which was great. And so I at least had guys to work with. But yeah, we were at the very end of the race, at the very back, basically the entire bike ride until maybe about mile 40 to 45. And we caught another group, which had maybe another 5 or 6 guys. And so we came into T2 with a group of maybe 10 to 12 guys. And then I think Jesse, what was his last name?
Thomas.
Jesse Thomas. Yeah, Jesse Thomas was also in that group. So it was kind of fun to like, I mean, the bike course was different. Of course, you had to go up that climb.
Lookout Mountain,
which was pretty challenging, especially. So I had not done any recon on that climb, and the bike that I used was a 1x and with a 53 front chain ring. And so pretty much that entire climb, I was riding at like 65 RPMs, which was probably not ideal, but I made it work. And yeah, we got on the run. And again, I did what I could on the run. I think I still had a decently solid run, and I passed a bunch of guys that were up ahead of me, but I think I ended up 26th on the day.
Okay.
Which again, I was really happy with, because I think there were about 50 guys in the pro field, and I was right around halfway. So all things considering, I had a good day. Yeah. I was not delusional. I didn't.
Sorry again.
I said I wasn't delusional. I was really not expecting to win that race with those guys in that field. So, but it was a great experience and one that I'll never forget.
I mean, that they made that a very challenging run course by making you run over Barton and then turn around and run back up the side street, which is basically Barton again, you know? So
Right.
yeah. So
Yeah, the
that,
whole thing was hard.
yeah. A lot different than the regular Chattanooga 70.3. No.
Oh yeah. Yeah. The times that you see from that race versus just the regular 70.3. I mean, it was a night and day, so almost a totally different race. Yeah.
Just for comparison, I did that race and then Augusta 2 weeks later and went 30 minutes faster.
I bet Augusta is a fast course. Yeah.
It is.